Hold on, I gotta get some materials, so give me like 2 seconds here.
Technically, we are live.
Oh, so people can see. Yeah, we are live. I see that people can see me. God damn it. I wasn't ready. Listen. Welcome to Ask Maester Live, the last one of the season for many, many years. Years? Perhaps years. Thanks to everyone who participated in all our coverage on our various platforms at theringer.com. What an incredible website. Really the best. It was an up and down season, but let's talk about it. First question is really like a question I answered. I kind of misinterpreted from my Ask the Maester column that went up today. So let's see. Josh asked, why didn't Ned try and install Jon over Stannis after Robert's death, if knowing that Jon was the rightful heir? Just because there wouldn't be a lot of support for that. Stannis had a decent-sized army at that time. So did Renly. Renly had the biggest army in the realm. And at that point, the Baratheon regime was pretty firmly, he had reigned for 18, 19 years. So it was like, there wasn't a lot of support for going back to the Targaryen days. That's why that didn't happen. Mitch, do we think Tyrion is working with Cersei? No, I don't think so. I hope not. I mean, certainly from that scene from The Dragon and the Wolf when she almost has the mountain kill him, doesn't seem like it, right? I mean, she was like, he's like, go ahead, do it. And then she's like, and then lets him go. Yeah, I don't think, it just doesn't seem like they're working together. But again, really clunky season with a lot of stuff really strangely handled, so you don't know. Rob, will Daario arrive in season 8 as the new Golden Company recruit? That's like it's a popular internet theory that Daario, stricken by jealousy and grief at being cast aside by Daenerys, decides to take up arms against her. I don't see that. Maybe that's a way to bring him back. But I can't see him turning on her because of that. But if that is the case, that's also kind of weirdly support for the Tyrion is jealous theory, because as I wrote in my column, which went up today on theringer.com, what an incredible website. Everybody that comes into Daenerys' orbit just falls in love with her, ends up falling in love with her. She's the office crush queen. Tony, you think we get both Winds of Winter and Dream of Spring before premiere of season 8? Tony, tell me what strain of weed you're smoking, because I want it. Joe, will the Night King head straight for Winterfell, or is he a military tactician who will be clever about how his invasion of the southern parts of the continent unfolds? I mean, it's a great question, and honestly, we don't know. He could fly over Winterfell and just blast it, but I would assume show up with the army. You've been going slow the whole time, and it's been working for you. Why rush it now? The humanity has dragonglass, even though they've been very bad at using it. Tormund and Beric, what were you guys doing up on the wall? Like, if you're not going to shoot dragonglass-tipped arrows at the Night King, then why are we standing up there? Just get off the wall and go home. So I would assume he'll show up with his army. Matt, do you think George R.R. Martin uses Jon's names Jon Aegon, makes Jon's name Aegon and not Jaehaerys? It is, I mean, that was certainly like in the room, everybody who knows the story was like, wait, when we were watching the episode before Talk of the Thrones on Sunday, was like, wait, so he named both of his sons Aegon? And the other one was like ostensibly perhaps still alive? That's weird. I don't know. You know, Rhaegar was a servant of prophecy, so I could see that happening. But it is weird. And it doesn't speak that well of him, like as a dude. Amy, did season 7 change your theory about whether Tyrion is a Targaryen? No. Not in the books, anyway. Maybe the show hinted at it, I believe, in that scene in Meereen when Dany has disappeared and Tyrion goes down to unshackle Viserion, R.I.P., and Rhaegal because their mother left them locked up because she was a bad mom, #badmom. But I think there's a lot of circumstantial evidence, and to be fair, it's not my theory. That's been out there for a while. But there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that Tyrion is indeed a Targaryen. Eric, do the White Walkers make sweet love? Oh. Do any of us? Do people make sweet love enough? Does it happen enough? Well, I mean, in the books, the book version of the Night King, 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, sees what we believe is a White Walker woman beyond the wall, goes down, scoops her up, brings her to humanity's side of the wall. They make sweet love, cold, sweet, frigid love together. So, yes, we haven't seen any female White Walkers, but we assume that happens. Eric, no, I just did that. Rick, one second. Someone told me to stop drinking on mic last week. This is what I say. Could the Night King be Azor Ahai of thousands of years ago? Wow, this is an interesting one I haven't thought about. I'm not sure why he would be, considering, I mean, it's not explicitly stated in the Azor Ahai legend that Azor defeats the Night King and the White Walkers. It's just kind of like vaguely fights darkness. I don't think so, but that a lot of groundwork would need to be laid for that to be the case. Connor, what's the point of Bran's character going forward? What does he have left to unravel? There's a lot of stuff, man. I mean, the cool thing about this story is that there's a shared history that goes back like 8,000 years. And all of that plays into the events that we're seeing now. You know, Robert's Rebellion is still affecting things we saw today. Rhaegar and Lyanna happened 2 decades prior to these events, and that is stuff that affects things that are happening now. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff still to be left unraveled that only Bran can see. From a more, like, book structure standpoint, this is just my theory, but, you know, the books are based on a POV structure, meaning that you can only see stuff if the character that the chapter is written from, you can only see things that the character sees. You know, like if Bran is in a place, then you see what Bran sees. But you can't understand what's happening in Volantis unless George writes a chapter written from the point of view of a character who's in Volantis, right? That's a really cool device, but it's hard to write a story like that because you can't skip ahead. You can't just go somewhere without placing a character there. And you know, so from a structural point of view, Bran was really created to create that omniscient narrator voice so that George could write about a thing where there are no main characters there. Vishnu. Does Theon somehow stop Euron and the Golden Company? I mean, he would be the main naval commander now of Dany's forces, which is weird because, like, I'm not even sure, like, why the Ironborn would have been following this guy because he's, like, been emasculated, is a coward, ran from several fights, and they're still like, yeah, we'll follow this guy, whatever. That was weird. Theon hasn't captained a ship, like, basically ever in war. Certainly not a fleet. So if he stops Euron, that is like an upset on par with like the Warriors blowing a 3-1 lead, but doing it like three seasons in a row. Daniel, do you think Bronn and Sex God Pod make it out of King's Landing okay? Please say yes. Ooh. You know what? I think Bronn walked away with Pod to go make the 8 somewhere in a brothel. Walked away from that scene because Jerome Flynn Jerome Flynn and the actress Lena Headey, who plays Cersei Lannister, they don't like each other in real life. So I think that's why he walked away from that scene. Sam, how do you imagine the info of Jon's parentage being proven? Howland Reed, where are you, my dude? Show up, do stuff. Come up and be like, yo, I was at the Tower of Joy. I saw the whole thing. Jon's the dude. Vlad, do the Lannister troops keep multiplying? Who are these troops? Cersei keeps supposedly... Whoops. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Cersei kept saying, I will pull my forces back. Or I won't pull my forces back. It's like, what? Lady, what forces are you talking about? What forces? Like, a large portion of your army got turned to ash at the Battle of the Loot Train attack. Just like, who else do you got? What Lannister forces are we talking about? It's just, that whole part of it is like crazy that, it's just crazy that they were still spinning Cersei forward as some kind of threat that needed to be countered. She's like finished. Whatever. Paul, where does the Night King get his intel? Well, if he's a Stark, then it's possible that he has some sort of green seeing / warg powers. This is a Mallory Rubin take after the episode before this episode, Beyond the Wall, when the Night King threw his javelin at Viserion rather than at Drogon, who was the stationary target and had the queen on it and everybody trying to get on his back. Why throw at Viserion? Well, what if he wants Jon to escape for some reason? That would explain why he was at the mountain like an arrowhead just across from Eastwatch, doing nothing, essentially, because he wanted to lure Jon in, knowing that Dany would bring the dragons, knowing that the dragons are the only way he could bring back the wall. Is that the case? I think that would be really cool. I do worry that the show, as show creative brain trust as presently constituted, is not clever enough to pull something like that off. Because so much of the stuff they did this season was just like, not clever. That would be the Night King having some kind of foresight of things and manufacturing this the entire bad plan would be a cool wrinkle. Zach, if we assume that the Night King is just warging into the entire army, do you think Bran might be able to warg into the living army? We've seen it with Hodor. I don't think so, because it just seems like that would be really hard. That would be incredibly hard. And to what end? Why do it, even? Katie, why did Cersei blame Tyrion for Tommen's death? It's a great question, Katie, that in the room, when we were watching it, the episode before Talk the Thrones, Mal and I were like, what? Why? I guess because she was kind of saying, because Tyrion killed Tywin, and that caused a ripple effect that caused everything that happened after to occur. That's tough. That's another example of like, I don't understand what the show is talking about, and it's like, almost seems as if characters don't remember things that happened before the middle of last season, which was not the case previously. Like, another good example of this was Tyrion's big speech at the Dragon Pit when he's like, our families have been fighting each other for 50 years. It's like, why 50 years? Like, what is 50 years? You know, why not 20 and go to Robert's Rebellion? What is 30 years before Robert's Rebellion? Like the freaking War of the Ninepenny Kings? Like, what? Why 50? It was just like weird. That was weird. Yeah, I don't get it either, Katie. Kevin, I haven't read the books yet. Should I even bother? If George isn't going to finish them, yes, you should bother. Absolutely bother. They're great. They're incredible. I mean, I don't think he's going to finish. That was for him finishing, not for him not finishing. I don't think George is going to finish just because, like, man, that's a tough ask. And if you look at it's been 7 years since Dance of Dragons, 7 years. God, we're getting old, people. 7 years. 7 years! That's insane. But you should read them because as a world-building achievement, it's incredible. It's really incredible. Like, you know, just the fact that you can be like, well, what are the words said during a Westerosi wedding ceremony? Not just a wedding ceremony, but an Andal-based, you know, from the South. You could do that, and you could say why. Who are the people? Who are the deities that are referenced in those words? What's the difference between that and a wedding in front of the old gods? You can understand why those traditions are different. You can understand the different ethnicities that make up Westeros, where they came from. You could trace back like a family's lineage thousands of years, literally thousands of years, and understand like the different things that they've gone through on their path to where you pick them up in the story. It's really just incredible. So yeah, read them. Chris, will we get a Night King backstory in the show? Is it necessary? I think it's necessary. I think you have to do that at some point, and I think it's a very Georgian thing to flesh out the motivations of all of his characters, so that there's not just like a black and white, good versus evil dichotomy. And it's something that I think the show is really ran from. And I think it's the part of the reason that they created all this like false drama with Arya and Sansa having arguments alone in a room in order to entrap Littlefinger, maybe? Like, all these things to manufacture drama, all because the show, in my view, doesn't want to engage with the magical elements of the story in a meaningful way. Just can't figure out how to do it. How do we flesh out what Bran's actual powers are? They don't want to do it. How do we flesh out what the Night King's motivations are? They just don't want to do it. You know, like, do the work and write the story. But and that's really the tragedy of this season and next, if it continues to be uneven, is the criticism, the takeaway for a lot of people is going to be, Game of Thrones was really great when it was a political story about families fighting each other in this medieval world. It was, you know, this internecine struggle, a political struggle. And then when the magic stuff started to happen, it was bad, because fantasy is for kids. That would be tragic and sad. And it would all be because the showrunners just can't figure out how to engage with that side of the story. Dan, where are you with Bran equals the Night King theory? I don't think he's the Night King, one, even though there's that picture of him wearing a similar necklace, whatever. I think that the show is trying to hint, or at least muddy the waters in that sense. I do think he's a Stark. I don't think he's the Bran that we know. And also, if he is, that would be super dumb. Let's see. Logan, will Cersei die giving birth to a dwarf in the ultimate backdoor prophecy fulfillment? Jaime ends up killing Cersei. And ironic death. I mean, that could happen. It's certainly something that we've discussed, like, amongst the fans of the story ourselves. Like, there's only 3 children and 3 golden shrouds in Maggie the Frog's prophecy to Cersei, right? So this 4th child shouldn't live. So that's a possibility, sure. Jake, what role do you think Melisandre still has left to play? It's a great question. Does she come back? So she's in Volantis now, which is a heartland of the worship of R'hllor. The main temple of R'hllor is there. I would assume like she's really going to rally the more religious, the fervent, like religious elements, the people that worship Dany as like an actual deity, the embodiment of the Lord of Light on Earth. But we will see. It's hard to tell really because like the show has been so erratic. Austin, which Game of Thrones character would have the most Twitter followers? Probably Tyrion. You know what? Not a lot of these people can read and write. There's a lot of, probably Tyrion because he's funny sometimes when he's not effing up all the time. Yeah, Cersei would pay for followers. Yeah, Cersei probably would pay for followers. Chris, Baccarella. What are your season rankings? 3? I guess 3, 4, 6, 2, 1, 5, 7. Vance, how is Sam going to be with Dany when he finds out she killed his family? Probably not too. I mean, sad. First of all, he didn't like his dad, even though he used he quoted his father's words when he quit the Citadel in a very strange creative choice made by the show again. His father, recall, threatened to kill him in a hunting accident so that Hornhill and the sword Heartsbane would pass to Dickon, his second son. So I don't think he'll weep. I don't think he'll shed too many tears. Certainly, like his mother and sister, who he actually really has legitimate affection for, are still alive. So that's fine. Dawson. Now, what are your book rankings? Oh. Storm Game Clash Dance Feast. Even though I really like dance, I like it a lot more than most people. Jeffrey, will Mexico have paid to rebuild the wall? No, I don't think so. All right, that's it. I think that's it, right? Is that it?
It's more of the same questions.
All right.
People think Tyrion betrays.
That's it, guys. It's been a great season. Thanks. Well, it hasn't been a great season, but you've been great. And thank you for, for engaging with all of our Game of Thrones content and other content, all of our fantastic content on theringer.com. Binge Mode will come out tomorrow. We're going to go for 300 hours. It's going to come out tomorrow sometime at night. Talk the Thrones is available in archived status. You can find it on our video page at theringer.com. You've been fantastic, people. On behalf of everyone who has contributed to our Game of Thrones coverage, Mal, Chris, Andy, our video crew, Colin, Sean, Jason, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I thank you. And now our watch has ended for 2 years.